This is probably going to be less of a review and more of just a fanboy gushing for I don't know how long, because this could be my game of the year. HJ review. Guys, Final Fantasy VII Remake has a lot of emotional weight behind it. I wanted to make this video after I played it back in April, I think is when it came out, and I really want to do this review justice. I want to do a full fleshed out video, like something really amazing, and I figured I'll do it after I platinum this game, but then because of time commitments and everything, it just kept slipping and slipping, and now here we are at the end of the year, and it's just going to end up being me just talking to a camera about my thoughts, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is just going to be me gushing about this game, because here we are at the end of the year. I've got maybe 3 games left that I have not touched that came out this year that I want to, but I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be my game of the year. Now, the other ones that I have not played yet are Hades, which I'm hearing is really good. We've got the Miles Morales Spider-Man game, which I love the original. I'm hearing really good things about the second one, but and then the third one is Ubisoft's Phoenix Rising. I don't think those 3 games are going to come anywhere close to delivering the emotional and just, yeah, the emotional impact that Final Fantasy VII Remake provided me. And this is coming from not an objective view of, you know, what this game is, its mechanic and everything, but it's the emotional attachment I have to this franchise, to this IP, to being such a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, the original, not to the hardcore level of absorbing all of the lore. Like I was really big into Final Fantasy. I think it was the first game that introduced me to the Final Fantasy franchise. And I always saw it being played at a friend's place, either on the PlayStation or on PC. And I always thought it was cool. Like I saw this weird, like, steampunk futuristic aesthetic, and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And I wasn't even big into RPGs at the time, so even seeing the concept of a turn-based RPG, I know, as stupid as that sounds, was just so appealing to me. I finally got my hands on my own copy of Final Fantasy VII when I had a PS2. I think I was about 15 or 16, and that's when I really dug into this game by myself instead of hanging out with friends and doing whatever else cool kids do in high school. And I just like put tons of hours into Final Fantasy VII. And then that was around the time, so by the time I got into it, Advent Children was around the corner. I liked it, but honestly, that movie confused me more than anything. I just really liked the characters of Cloud, Sephiroth. I liked the universe. I liked the aesthetic. I liked pretty much everything about this, but I was never hardcore into it to like read up on all the conspiracies, all of the side lore. I never actually got into Crisis Core, and I didn't play most of the I didn't play the Vincent game or anything else. So really, I was, I guess, a fringe fan, not a hardcore fan. I don't even know what you'd call that. So when they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, I was just like, wow, this is cool. The fact that I get to play a game I love so much, but it just has modern features. But I was really skeptical about not being overhyped, because I was like, oh, I really don't like the direction Final Fantasy games have gone into recently. I hated 13. 12 was okay. 10 was okay, but none of them really gave me that feeling that 7 and all the other ones before it gave me. So I was very skeptical that they would probably just give it that modern flair and everyone would be just really moody and it'd be overly serious and it just wouldn't work. I'm so happy to say I was wrong. They've hit they hit it on the head perfectly in every way. So this game, I think, is geared specifically, I'm speaking to it as a fan who's played the original, and it's so cool to see a lot of the scenes recreated in Remake, and the characters come out as genuine and the way that they were originally intended to. Like Cloud feels like Cloud, Tifa looks and feels like Tifa, Barrett is the same guy. Like everything that you imagine from like these little polygonal models and just text bubbles are actually recreated well. And the way that they fleshed out the world so that you can look at it. I'm not big on graphics. I'm always focused on gameplay. But this is one of those games where I would actually stop and look at the background and pan the camera and look, just because this is a world, Midgar specifically. I've always been so pulled into this world and wanting to see more. And this is the game that finally let me do it and to look at it and to just have more to do. Now there's a lot that they've added. A lot of people are complaining, or were complaining, I don't know, they might still be complaining that, oh, this is just a quarter of the game. I'm waiting for the full game. And I'm just going to say, if you're one of those people, I completely disagree with you. If you actually play this game, it's a 35-hour full game. And sure, you could say, well, it's a remake, it's just a subset of the original. But they've taken a subset of an original game and fleshed it out into a full game. And there's no way I feel that this Final Fantasy VII Remake portion, everything they put into this, is not worth $60. People are saying, oh, they're nickel and diming you, and the whole Final Fantasy VII Remake experience, after they're done all their chapters, it's going to be like a $200-300 investment. You're right. And I'm going to say, because it's such a new experience, it's worth it. The original game was 35 hours to get through the whole thing. The fact that I had the whole Midgar arc with 35 hours with fleshed out characters, fleshed out side quests, fleshed out combat, everything just more fleshed out and just added more to it, it's completely justified. If you can pick up, I would spend the same amount of money on this game again. Now, if you're not a fan, I would say it's your call, but if you can get this at 50% at least, like that is a no-brainer. You have to pick it up. Now, I don't know if I want to get into the spoilers because there are some major spoilers. We're going to avoid the spoilers. I can't share my thoughts on it. They're just way too big. But there's let's just say, if you've played it already, if you've played the original, and you're like, well, is there any point in playing this remake? I'm just going to say yes, there are surprises for the old players, and we'll just leave it at that. All right, now let's kind of like dive into this. So the combat is, I guess, the biggest thing that was changed. And of course, the combat is now changed from turn-based, old school RPG style to more of a action turn-based. I don't even know how to describe it. And I have to say, I was a little bit worried about that. I was afraid it was going to be more like Final Fantasy 15 or like Kingdom Hearts, which are good, but Final Fantasy 15 felt a little sloppy. I preferred Kingdom Hearts, but still, I couldn't see that working in Final Fantasy VII. Here it works. I have to admit, in the first hour when you're doing the whole bombing run mission, which is also what the demo is, I was overwhelmed between having to coordinate my attacks, my movement, seeing what's on screen, having to like be in certain locations to defend from certain attacks, specifically the boss. The boss is what overwhelmed me. Selecting my materia, my spells, and also managing my items all in real time while trying to figure out what's going on, figure out my movement, figuring out my positioning, and then trying to also coordinate my other players on my party. It felt very overwhelming, but I don't know when it clicked for me. It was fairly quick. I'd say maybe by chapter 2 or by chapter 3, you start getting that muscle memory of like, okay, I need this to heal. I need to like, everything just kind of sort of clicks, and it's a lot more satisfying with this level of combat, because it just feels like you can feel that Buster Sword when it's coming down. Or if you want to play as any other character, you can swap out and play as whoever you want. So like Tifa's a lot more of a acrobatic fighter, martial arts style, and every character plays and feels different and appropriate to them. You know, Barrett has the arm cannon, so he's more of a range fighter. So if you're attacking like wing things, you're gonna want to switch to him, do his attacks while you tell Cloud to like run and do some melee, and everything just flows so good. Like they really locked into something that was fantastic there. Now, on top of the combat, there's just so much more to do. There's the side quests, which I really liked. They didn't feel really like fetch quests, for example. They felt like you were learning a little bit more of the world, that you were actually helping what was going on. So I really like the side quest aspect. I love how they fleshed out kind of the mini games and the side story things. For example, when you're in the whole cross-dressing segment, which people were really afraid of, how were they going to deal with that in 2020? And I thought they dealt with it really well. Like, they didn't shy away from it. They went pretty much full in. There's this whole dance sequence where you're, where there's a dude trying to seduce or falling in love with Cloud because he's too pretty, and just everything. There was so many moments where I was either laughing or just like feeling like sad for the characters, and I'm pretty sure this is because, I had an attachment to the original. I can't judge or review this game as someone who just, goes in blindly. I have no idea what that experience is like. And I'm staying at a very high level here because there was just so many little things that I feel just kind of pleased me as a player and as a fan that wouldn't necessarily do it for anyone else, but just overall the experience was fantastic. And I really can't say much more to it than that. I still want to go back and play it on hard mode. I played it on normal, and there's a lot of extra things. There's additional bosses. There's a lot of stuff to get that platinum trophy, which is what I'm trying to get. But the music. How could we talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake without the music? This is one of the best soundtracks ever. And I don't count Smash Brothers soundtrack because that's just the, culmination of all these other game series, but the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack is so damn good. It takes all of these old classical tunes and remixes them in ways that is just so much more epic. Like there's a part where I'm fighting, I think it's called it was one of the Genova battles. And I completely forgot about one of Genova's theme songs. And as I was fighting this boss, a remix of that song kicks in on like halfway into the battle. And I was just like, oh my God, I know that. It's just like pulling into all these nostalgia strings. And I just got like goosebumps everywhere. I was like, oh my God, I know this song. And then it's like a song that like hypes you up and it's remixed to be more epic. And like the fight is getting even more hard, more intense. And the music just fills it in. Like the music kind of follows the cues and the beats of how a battle is flowing, which old games could never do. Old games was pretty much, here is a track, we will play it on loop while you are in this segment. Whereas here, music is now actually, it seems to be coordinated to moments of what's happening. So if you're like unleashing an ultimate, the song like gradually changes into like more of an epic like fanfare, and then it like goes down when you're like getting back into the grind and defending and the boss attacks you. So everything, I was playing this soundtrack on repeat for a good month or two after I had played the game, just because it was so good. So now that we're at the end of 2020, this is hands down, unless like I said, those other games can do anything, but I don't think it can, my game of the year. It's a game I loved. Story, visuals, music, gameplay. It gets pretty much a 10 out of 10 in every category. I can't even think of a downside to this game other than I wish there was more. Not even, because games sometimes are too long and you're like, no, this was a perfect meal where I'm like, I'm full, I'm satisfied, I don't feel stuffed, I'm perfectly content. So this is my 10 out of 10 game of the year game. And if anything appeals to you, I highly recommend you play this game because it's just such a blast. And if you can play the original before playing this one, I think that's a better experience, but I don't think it'll ever recreate the fact of playing it as a teenager, letting that nostalgia stew for 20 years and then playing the remake. You can't recreate that, but I really recommend to play this. At least play the demo, see if you like that. If you like the demo, the main game is far beyond that. I would give the demo like a 7 and 8 out of 10, and then the full game is a 10 out of 10. So the full game is much, much better. And that's my thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Pretty much, yeah, perfect game for me. And that is my game of the year. I'll see you guys in the next video, and until then, keep it classy.